Hey guys, let us learn about the circle of crime using Ochanya's elder sister's interview as a case study. Shall we?
The person that killed my sister is Felicia Ogbanje.
Yes, but the man was the one that perpetrated.
Why didn't she tell us?
For a crime to take place, there are rules that people play in it for the crime to be perpetrated, especially if it's a crime that is continually happening, as with the case with Ochanya, where we have a father and son who allegedly rape a minor. And they rape her to an extent where she develops VVF and she succumbs to her injuries. So, what are the roles? First, we start with the perpetrator. Perpetrator is the person or persons who carry out the criminal act. In this case, Ochanya's uncle and cousin are the perpetrators. Now, their motivation could be anything: thrill, addiction, or maybe just being plain sick in the head. Now we have the accomplices. These are people who actively help commit the crime. They plan, they are the lookout, they help with transport, they help with direct assistance, right? Now, think of this as someone who is driving the getaway car of a robbery happening in a bank, right? Now we have the organizer or the mastermind. These are the people who plan, coordinate, fund, directly or indirectly, right? They may not take part in the physical action, but they facilitate it, right? Now we have the facilitators or the specialists. These are people who provide skills, tools, services that the perpetrators lack, right? So we have that set. Now, the next set of people in this are the enablers. These are people or institutions that indirectly make crime easier, right? Sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. In this case, Ochanya's aunt is an enabler, right? Now, she is not a perpetrator because she did not carry out the act. However, she probably made it easy for the crime to happen and to continuously happen by not talking about it or not mentioning it or hiding it. Then we have the bystanders or witnesses. Ochanya's aunt could also fall into this category. These are people who see or know something but do not act. Their inactions is usually, a moral or legal enabling of the situation. And then we have the institutions. The institutions or structural enablers. These are social, legal, economic conditions that create a fertile ground for crimes like this to still continue. So, for example, the judge or the judiciary system who actually lets the perpetrators go in the first instance are also enablers, right? And then finally, we have the victim. And that is who Ochanya is. Ochanya is the victim because it is her who has been affected by this heinous act. Now that we've learned about the roles that are being played for a crime to happen, let us look at this interview again.
She didn't even let us talk about it. You cannot open your mouth to talk to her husband.
It's unfortunate that a lot of people have this mindset where they absolve a male perpetrator of the crime by shifting the blame to the female enablers, right? So you see this oftentimes, even with casual friendships. When there is an offense and a man has committed the offense, you see women who shift the person who committed the offense to the people who may have enabled it, especially if the enabler in question is a woman. And they will say things like, it is the woman who caused it, right? It is the woman who caused it. Now, an enabler cannot cause a crime, okay? Somebody who keeps quiet in the face of injustice, right? Or somebody who hides it, or somebody who doesn't talk about it, is not the cause of the crime. The perpetrators are the people who are solely responsible for the crime. Okay? So because somebody did not talk about it, or maybe, they hid that information, they are not the reason. It's just like saying, if you witness your neighbor getting robbed and you don't say anything, you don't call the police, are you the reason why your neighbor got robbed? So when you say, oh, the reason why people are getting robbed is not because there are thieves, it's because people are quiet when people get robbed. That is shifting the blame entirely, and that is a flawed way to approach this. Now, when women do this, they are often called male-centered. These are people who somehow still try not to blame men who commit this. And you also see this with friendships. For example, if your boyfriend or your husband, for example, sleeps with your friend, you see women who say things like, oh, I can't blame him, right? I can't blame him. I'm going to blame my friend. Now, in that case, the both parties are perpetrators, right? Because for somebody to be cheated on or whatever, it takes two perpetrators. But when you see a lot of people say, oh, I can't blame this person. And you see this usually when it comes to even maybe a husband sleeping with a house girl that is a minor. That is statutory rape. And you see the wife saying things like, oh, I cannot blame my husband though. I'm going to blame the girl who did not tell me anything or who kept this a secret. That means she enjoyed it. That means if she did say it, it means she enjoyed what is happening. Now, in that case, the man who is sleeping with the minor is the perpetrator. The minor is the victim, right? And a victim can behave in a way that enables the environment by not speaking up, but it doesn't mean they are not still the victim, and they cannot be the perpetrator. They cannot be the cause of the crime. Okay?